Zhang, whose first strike was meant to humiliate, not kill. That made it predictable.
He came in with his right hand open, aiming for Lin Fan's collar. It was the same instinct as yesterday, the same grasping assertion that strength meant the right to put another body where he wanted it.
His left shoulder followed too high.
His weight drove forward through the right foot.
Anger made him faster than usual and less balanced than he believed.
Lin Fan stepped onto the cracked stone. The crowd saw retreat. He felt terrain. The stone under his left heel shifted a fraction. He had noted the crack earlier.
He let it give just enough to alter his line without making the movement obvious.
Zhang, whose hand closed on the edge of his outer robe instead of the throat. Lin Fan did not pull away. He turned with the grip. The motion drew Zhang, who farther forward than intended. At the same time, Lin Fan's right knuckle touched the inside of Zhang, whose wrist at the tendon he had disrupted that morning.
Not a strike. A reminder. Zhang, whose fingers loosened. Lin Fan slipped free. The entire exchange lasted less than a breath.
To most disciples, it looked as if Zhang Hu had missed.
To Lu Chen, it looked like something else.
His eyes narrowed. Zhang Hu stumbled half a step and recovered with a curse.
Stand still.
Lin Fan looked at him.
That would help you.
The court murmured.
Zhang Hu attacked again. This time, he used a fist.
Better.
Anger had learned a little. The punch came from the shoulder, heavy enough that if it struck Lin Fan's current body cleanly, ribs would crack.
Zhang Hu had body-tempering strength and a mid-grade mixed root. Lin Fan had damaged meridians, fever, and a root mark held open by will.
Direct collision would be stupidity.
He shifted left. The punch passed close enough to stir his hair. Lin Fan let his sleeve brush Zhang Hu's forearm. Inside the sleeve, his fingers dropped the folded packet of root powder. It fell into the crack between two stones.
No one saw. Good. Evidence no longer sat on his body.
Zhang Hu pivoted, using the missed punch to turn into a shoulder slam.
Crude but useful in confined spaces.
Lin Fan could not simply dodge backward. Ma Yong had moved near the exit, and two disciples stood behind him.
The crowd itself had become a wall.
Lin Fan allowed the shoulder to approach. At the last instant, he lowered his stance and placed two fingers against Zhang Hu's elbow. A weak body could not stop a strong charge.
It could redirect a joint.
Zhang Hu's own force twisted his arm across his chest. His shoulder slammed not into Lin Fan, but into one of the leaning stone posts.
The sound was dull.
Zhang Hu grunted. The post did not break.
His pride did. Laughter burst from someone before fear suppressed it.
Zhang Hu spun, face contorted.
Who laughed? No one answered.
Lin Fan stood 3 steps away, breathing evenly. The root pain had worsened. Every movement tugged the poison ring. The cooling leaf under his tongue had gone soft and bitter. His right meridian throbbed from the wrist contact. He had perhaps 10 clean movements left before the body began paying interest.
And quickly, then. But not too cleanly.
If he crushed Zhang Hu with impossible skill, Lu Chen would report more than humiliation. If he struggled too visibly, Zhang Hu might regain courage. The ideal defeat would appear to come from Zhang Hu's own anger, terrain, and Lin Fan's calm timing. Let the crowd think, Zhang Hu lost control.
Let Lu Chen think, Lin Fan is hiding something. Both were true enough.
Zhang Hu wiped dust from his shoulder.
You keep running. You keep missing. Another murmur.
Zhang Hu's gaze darkened. His chi stirred visibly now, a faint red-brown heat rising from his arms. Outer disciple duels without weapons often allowed body-strengthening chi, but not full techniques capable of crippling. Zhang Hu, in anger, pushed past the polite boundary.
Lu Chen said, Zhang Hu. A warning. Zhang Hu ignored it.
He drew chi into both fists. The air around his knuckles roughened.
Fire-earth mixed root gave him heavy heat, not elegant, but effective. A clean blow would bruise organs. The crowd stepped back. Ma Yong's eyes flickered.
Even he did not want to stand too close if Zhang Hu crossed the line and stewards asked who allowed it. Lin Fan did not step back. He lowered his gaze to Zhang Hu's feet. Right foot forward.
Left knee weak from old training strain. Weight too high. Breath loud. Eyes fixed on upper body.
Lin Fan lifted his left hand and pulled back his sleeve again, exposing the bruise.
You injured me yesterday, he said. Elders suspended you today. Now you use Qi in an informal challenge.
Zhang Hu's expression twisted.
Are you fighting, Lin Fan asked, or confessing?
The words struck harder because the crowd understood them. If Zhang Hu continued, he confirmed recklessness. If he stopped, he looked afraid. If he denied using Qi, everyone could see the heat around his fists.
Lu Chen's smile had vanished completely.
Zhang Hu chose the worst path. He roared and charged. Lin Fan moved toward him. The crowd did not expect that. Zhang Hu did not expect that. Most weak disciples retreated from larger force. Lin Fan stepped inside it before the fist reached full power. His right foot slid into the drainage trench at the east edge of the court, then out again, using the dip to lower his center by half an inch. Zhang Hu's first fist passed above his shoulder.
Lin Fan's left palm touched Zhang Hu's chest. Lightly. No strength. Only placement.
His thumb pressed one point between the ribs where Zhang Hu's breath had opened under the roar. His right hand tapped the old wrist tendon. His shoulder brushed Zhang Hu's arm, turning the second fist outward.
3 contacts. Breath, grip, line.
Then Lin Fan stepped away. Zhang Hu's own momentum carried him forward. His left knee, already weak, hit the edge of the drainage trench at the wrong angle. The Qi gathered in his fists lost rhythm.
His breath locked. He fell. Not dramatically.
Worse. He dropped to one knee in the center of the court, one hand catching himself against the dirty stone, the other clutching his chest as air refused to enter properly. The court went silent. Zhang Hu stared at the ground.
His face showed disbelief first. Then pain.
Then the awareness of being seen. Lin Fan stood behind him, robe slightly disturbed, face calm, one hand still inside his sleeve. He had not struck hard enough to injure seriously. He had placed Zhang Hu where kneeling became unavoidable.
That distinction would matter to elders. It mattered more to the crowd. Someone whispered, he knelt. Zhang Hu heard it. The words stabbed through the pain and brought rage back faster than breath. He forced air into his lungs with a harsh gasp and pushed himself up. Lin Fan watched. Good.
The first fall had cracked public confidence.
The second would settle it.
Zhang Hu staggered to his feet. His eyes were bloodshot.
The Qi around his fists flickered unevenly.
He wanted to attack again, but his body had begun to doubt the instructions anger gave it. Lin Fan's body was also nearing limit. He tasted blood at the back of the throat again. The packet of root powder remained hidden in the stone crack. The cooling leaves remained in his sleeve.
The witnesses remained attentive. Lu Chen remained silent. All required conditions were present.
Lin Fan spoke before Zhang Hu could gather himself.
Continue. The word was quiet. It reached everyone.
Zhang Hu's face changed. Until then, he had believed himself the challenger, Lin Fan the pressured target.
That one word reversed the frame. Continue.
As if Zhang Hu were the one being tested. As if his anger, strength, and humiliation were all permitted to proceed for Lin Fan's purposes. Ma Yong shifted uncomfortably. One of Zhang Hu's followers took a step back.
Lu Chen's eyes sharpened with reluctant understanding.
Lin Fan had not merely avoided Zhang Hu. He had been observing him. Zhang Hu understood last. That delay finished him more thoroughly than the fall.
Shut up, he breathed.
Lin Fan looked at his fists.
Your Qi is uneven.
Zhang Hu froze.
Your left knee cannot bear another forward charge.
The court listened.
Your right wrist opens when you are angry.
Zhang, whose hand twitched. Your breath fails if pressure lands between the third and fourth ribs. The disciples nearest Zhang, who stared at his chest. He covered the spot without thinking. Lin Fan's gaze remained cold.
You have shown everything useful.
The sentence changed how the crowd saw the previous movements. Before, Zhang, whose fall could be called luck. The cracked stone, the drainage trench, the awkward angle, all of it gave pride somewhere to hide. But once Lin Fan named the weaknesses, the old excuses grew smaller. The crowd replayed what it had seen. Zhang, whose wrist opening.
The knee catching. The sudden loss of breath.
The way Lin Fan had stood where Zhang, whose force would carry itself into failure.
Luck became pattern. Pattern was frightening.
Zhang, who felt the reinterpretation happen around him. His eyes moved from face to face.
No one stepped forward to restore the old explanation.
Even his followers were thinking now, and thought was betrayal to men who relied on blind support.
Lu Chen's expression had gone unreadable.
Lin Fan did not need to read it fully. He only needed to know that Lu Chen had seen enough to regret underestimating the situation. Regret would make him cautious. Caution would make him slower to interfere.
Good.
Pain pulsed behind Lin Fan's ribs. He had spoken more than planned.
Speech cost breath. Breath controlled pain. The body did not like the trade. He let his next inhale sink shallowly and held it for 2 heartbeats, enough to keep the root mark steady.
Zhang, who mistook the pause for weakness. His shoulders lifted.
There. Pride searching for a crack.
Lin Fan gave him one. He shifted his weight slightly toward the injured side, making the movement visible enough for Zhang, who and almost no one else.
A baited flaw. Zhang, whose eyes locked onto it.
Lin Fan saw decision form.
The decision was ugly and immediate.
Zhang, who would aim for the visible weakness, then call the strike instinct if questioned. A shoulder blow, perhaps, or a shove hard enough to twist the body and make Lin Fan's root pain flare.
He had not thought beyond that.
Men like Zhang, who rarely did once they saw a target. They trusted force to solve the rest. Lin Fan let the flaw remain visible for 2 more breaths. Long enough for Zhang, who to believe he had discovered it.
Short enough that Lu Chen could not warn him. The crowd sensed something gathering.
Their whispers thinned.
Even those who understood nothing of footwork could feel the air before a collision.
A few disciples looked toward the side path, perhaps wondering if a steward might appear.
None called for one. Good.
They had chosen witness over prevention. That choice would bind them to the result. Lin Fan's right hand hung loose. Inside the sleeve, 2 fingers pressed lightly against the folded packet of root powder. He needed it gone before the fight tightened further. If Zhang Hu or Lu Chen forced a sleeve search afterward, the packet would become trouble.
If it lay hidden in the court, it could become evidence at a chosen time. Zhang Hu's next movement would give the opening.
Lin Fan inhaled once.
The cooling bitterness under his tongue steadied the throat. The root mark pulsed. He held it open.
The words stripped the fight of mystery. Zhang Hu no longer looked like a stronger disciple temporarily unlucky.
He looked red. Known. Measured.
The crowd felt it.
Zhang Hu did too.
He attacked because stopping would have required accepting that feeling. Lin Fan stepped onto the cracked stone again and waited.
Waiting became another humiliation.
Zhang Hu wanted motion from him.
Fear, defense, retreat, anything that proved Lin Fan's calm was a mask.
Instead, Lin Fan stood on the cracked stone as if the ground had chosen him. The court saw the contrast, one disciple breathing hard, she flickering, face red, the other pale, injured, quiet, and somehow more stable. The contradiction tightened around Zhang, whose throat before Lin Fan touched him again. He stepped forward.
Not roaring this time.
That was worse for him. The attempted control sat awkwardly on his anger. His fists rose into a guard he had not needed in previous fights against weaker disciples.
A guard admitted the possibility of being struck. A guard told the watching crowd that Zhang, who no longer believed Lin Fan, could simply be grabbed. Lin Fan let his eyes drop to the guard. One glance. Zhang, who saw it and adjusted. Too late. The adjustment opened the line Lin Fan needed. The line was not obvious. It was not the throat, not the chest, not the groin, not any target an outer disciple would name while boasting. It was the little failure created when Zhang, who corrected one weakness and exposed another. Guard up meant ribs protected. Elbow in meant wrist tight. Weight adjusted meant the weak knee bore a little more than it wanted. Each correction carried a cost. Lin Fan chose the cost that would look most like Zhang, whose own fault. That was always the cleanest way to defeat a man in public. If the crowd saw Lin Fan strike brilliantly, they would fear a technique. If they saw Zhang, whose body betray him, they would fear the idea that Lin Fan could make their own bodies do the same. One fear stayed on the surface. The other went home with them. Zhang, who stepped into range. Lin Fan's breathing stopped for half a beat. Not from fear. From timing. Timing was the one weapon a weak body could still carry without weight. Strength required muscle. Speed required tendons. Qi required meridians that did not tear under use. Timing required attention and the willingness to let danger approach close enough that others mistook patience for helplessness. Lin Fan had built empires on timing. He could spend a little of it in a cracked washing court. The old Lin Fan had once learned timing by bleeding for it. Masters called it instinct when they saw the final result. They did not see the years of being slower, weaker, poorer, and forced to survive by arriving half a breath before pain. That education had returned with him. Zhang, who was about to pay tuition. The price would not be high enough to cripple him. Only high enough to teach everyone watching that Lin Fan chose his prices.